Hi, I'm Nancy. Welcome to Mindful Yoga. Today, our practice is going to work on the gliding between the muscles. We have layers of muscles in our body, sometimes layered with fibers going in opposite directions, and they need to be able to slide gently over each other. Sometimes adhesions or sticky points, little bits of tissue create between those. This also is done by a rotation and lengthening. And this rotation and lengthening can come up into the joints and hydrate and stimulate the joints. So good for arthritic joints or just joints in general. We're also going to be singing the praise of the feet. So we'll give a little attention to our feet, which bear so
Is
much.
your audio on?
Ah, let me mute everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. So taking a seat where your hips can be touching down to the earth. Imagining that central channel of subtle energy that the ancient yogis talk about, the shushumna, that rises up from pelvic floor, up through the inner muscles of the abdomen, through the diaphragm, coming up through heart and lungs, physically coming around the wrappings of the lungs and the heart, coming into the throat and up into the root of the tongue. A little lift through the crown, getting that feeling of letting the spine hang down from heaven. Relaxing through the belly, the shoulders. Taking some time to breathe. Allowing the prana to come alive in the body. Prana, which initiates life from the separate body to the primal cosmic energy of which we all are a part. Two or three more breaths. Letting the exhale be long. Nikki Giovanni writes, "It is appropriate that I sing the song of the feet, the weight of the body, and what the body chooses to bear, fall on me. I soldiered in Korea, jungled through Vietnam, caved my way through Afghanistan, walked behind JFK, shouldered MLK, stood embracing Sister Betty." Now we'll come into some gentle movements, beginning that gentle, slow movement of muscles. Just let the chin come back and forth ever so slightly, just a short movement. Over diagonally in one direction and then diagonally over in the other. Then bringing the head back to center. Let one shoulder come forward an inch or so and the other shoulder come back an inch or so. Again, just a slight, slow movement, bringing some rotation between the shoulders and across the chest and back. These will be almost imperceptible movements that lengthen and rotate and create glide between the layers of muscles. And coming back through center, keep the shoulders still, the hips still, and see if you can just rotate in the lower ribs. Just very slight movement. And if it doesn't rotate, you might just go side to side. This is something I do surreptitiously when I'm sitting Zen. Sometimes I need to move just a little bit of rotation in the lower ribs. Then coming to a more obvious yoga rotation where we rotate the ribs around the hips. This is a small movement. Bringing your mind's eye to the lower back where you might sense some of that sliding of muscle over muscle, and around the opposite direction. One more time. Coming back through center, bring one hand down, other hand rises up, lift up through the fingertips, become long down through the hips, bow out through the upper ribs into a bit of a side arch, and then heavy the head down and slowly rotate the head. And bringing the head to stillness, bring that shoulder forward just a bit. The shoulder of the raised arm comes forward just an inch or two, bringing again some rotation and sensing, using your own judgment to sense where you're feeling that in the body. And bringing that arm down, other arm rises up, inhale up, exhale long down through the hips, inhale up, exhale bow out underneath the arm, heavy the head, and rotate, bringing glide through the muscles of the neck. Just a slight movement. And coming back to center with the head, bringing the shoulder of the raised arm forward just an inch or two and back. Feeling the feeling, the sensation of the sensation. One more time. And bring the arm down. Spreading our wings, and then coming in. Maybe making this a bit of a smaller movement, bringing our mind's eye to what is gliding here. What do you feel across the top of your back, the mid-back, the mid-front, the chest? At the same time, opening the heart, encountering our chair sitting posture. One last opening, and bring the hands down. Let's extend our legs out wide in front of us. We're going to do the Pilates saw, which is bringing one hand across the body over towards the little toe. Maybe it comes all the way, maybe it comes part way, pinky going towards little toe. Make it slow. Again, what are you sensing? What muscles do you feel gliding over each other? There's a lot of feeling in this for me. Maybe I feel it most in the side, middle back. Feels good. One more time to each side, keep it slow. So you can feel and break up some of those adhesions. Now we're going to rotate our feet from side to side. And I'm doing it with my hands because it helps the feet to know what it's doing. I'm bringing side to side. It's like the bottom of your foot and the palm of your hand are moving side to side. Interesting how hand and foot on the same side really want to move together. So maybe bringing some hydration to that ankle joint. Now bring the hands down, and we're going to rotate the whole leg. So I like to bring my hands around my thigh just to remind my thigh that it's all going to be turning now. So the whole leg from the hip down to the ankle with a flexed ankle is turning. Maybe you can get a sense of the top of the femur, the thigh bone, turning slightly in the hip socket. And we'll come to the other leg, turning that leg. I'm not really turning with my hands, I'm simply reminding myself to turn the whole leg. Not letting your upper body slump down, and yet allowing there to be kind of a looseness in the neck and a relaxation in the shoulders. 2 and 1. Now let's circle the feet. Giving some relief to those ankles that choose or not choose to bear so much, and round the opposite direction. Now bring the wrists in with that, everything circling together, round the opposite direction. Now let that go for a moment and take the hand and foot on one side and see if you can turn them in opposite directions. So start the foot or start with the hand, either one. Start that going in one direction, and then I'm starting my foot first, and then my wrist is going in the opposite direction. It's a very interesting exercise for the brain. Doesn't always work. And then trying the other side, starting the foot, going round in one direction, and then finding the opposite direction with the wrist and hand. I'm not doing well. I have noticed though, the more I do it, I can do it a little bit more. So it's a good brain teaser. You might come back to it at a later time. Letting that go, bring your feet in, and let's bring our arms wide. Overhead, stretching up from the sacrum, up through crown, up through fingertips, and then wide once again. Fingers reach out, wide. Bend the elbows. Now turn the palms forward and back. Not overdoing it, just an easy forward and back turn of the palms. Bringing rotation into the elbow joints. So I'm learning this from my teacher, Holmes, at Kripalu Yoga Center. And he gives the example of if you take a sock and put it on your hand, and imagine this is the end of the joint, and there's another bone up here, and we're bringing length and rotation here, and you can see the twists that happen, and those twists not only break the adherences between the gliding muscles, but also come up here into the joint. So just a way to help imagine what's happening here. Let's come into a windshield wiper. Feet are wide, hands are giving you good support in the back under your shoulders, and hips can kind of float a little bit on this, bringing rotation through the hips, not so much into the lumbar spine, but letting the hips turn side to side, one hip coming up a bit. Letting some looseness and ease come into the hips and the knees and the feet. Now we're going to bring the knees over to one direction and stay here for a moment as the opposite arm comes around towards the back corner of the room, then slowly repeating that motion, not coming back all the way to center, feeling again the length and rotation through the body. Where might the muscles be sliding over each other? And then coming around to the other side, repeating that diagonal movement, that slight rotation that goes down. You can feel the distribution of force, the transmission of force and rotation down through the body into the hip. One last time. And let's come down into a full body twist. Coming back to that Sushumna central body breathing, touching down to the earth. Then lifting up and coming around to the other side. And come back through center. Going to massage our feet here for a moment. So bringing your fingers to each toe, rubbing the front and the back and the sides on each side of the toenail. Caring for each one of those toes, those first three toes that take the weight that comes down through the body, and the little fourth and fifth toe that help us have balance. And rubbing back between the metatarsals, those thin bones that come back from the toes across the top. Good meridian points in there. And underneath, bringing the hands, the fingers back along the plantar fascia, connective tissue in the bottom of the foot, the arch, the outside of the sole of the foot, and back into the heel, which is usually a little calloused, as it should be, because it takes a lot of weight. Noticing that the heel bone is over more towards the outside of the heel. And so we bring our weight here into the center and outside, because that's really where the heel bone is. And that weight comes across into these mounds of the first three toes. That's structurally how our weight comes down into the foot. It comes down through the calf, through the Achilles heel, down into the heel, and then across. Let's take the other foot and rub the toes on that one. Just bringing some love to each one of your toes. We're rubbing fingers or thumb down along and between those metatarsals, top of the foot, feeling the bottom of the foot, the balls, the arch, the plantar fascia that anchors the foot all along the bottom, pressing into that heel bone and across to the mounds of the first three toes. Noting how the weight comes down through the calf, down into the Achilles heel, into the heel, and across to the toes. Let's come into a tabletop position. You might have two blocks. We're going to come into a long, low lunge, and you might want blocks for that. Completely optional. We'll start by having the hands a little forward of the shoulders. Hips come back towards heels. Then coming forward, stretching the front of the body without letting the stomach and hips sink down too much. As you come forward, keeping engagement through the glutes, through the core, through the chest and the shoulder blade area. Not tight and yet engaged, so that the body doesn't completely sink down into itself. Then just enjoying. If you want a little bit more, you can come onto the top of your feet and raise the knees, but no need to do that. See what feels best for you. The point of this is to stretch out the body. One more time. Then we'll come into a puppy stretch. So hands are still in front of the shoulders, hands are wide on the mat, knees are wide, hips are high. Chest comes down in the direction of the mat, just stretching the heart down towards the earth. Allowing the heart for a moment to find the grounding and stability of the earth energy. Then rise it up slightly, hands come back a little bit. We're going to do a cat-cow. Knees might come in just a little bit in this position. So using those oblique muscles to lift up through the waist as the back arches. And then engaging the muscles, stretching from the pubic bone up through the collarbone, not letting too much sinking. In this cow position, as your stomach sinks down, we can get compression in the back of the waist between the vertebrae. And so we're keeping some engagement there, even as we open through the front of the spine. One last time. And staying in the puppy position more or less, bring the right forearm underneath the shoulders. The fingers are pointing over to the left. My forearm is under the chest or shoulders, fingers pointing to the left. My left hand goes out a ways beyond the mat for support. And then my right shoulder comes forward in the direction of the fingers. Back and forth a few times. In a rotation. Don't force it, don't strain it. Just enough. Feeling the sliding of muscles. Not only in the shoulders, but down into the lower ribs a bit as well, and the side oblique muscles. And then coming to the other side, planting the left forearm under the shoulders, right arm comes out beyond the mat. And then the left shoulder goes in the direction of the fingers. It's floating back and forth. Small movements that treat the very small adhesions between the muscles. And bring it back up. We're going to do a hip circle, so hands are a little bit in front of the shoulders, knees are under the hips, letting the hips come back to the side and forward and around. Keep it slow. Just enjoy. going around the opposite direction. Then coming back through center, bring the hands so that they're directly underneath the shoulders, knees under hips. Bring the weight into the right hip, lift the left knee, bring it up towards the elbow a bit, then stretch it back long, long from crown to tiptoes. Cross it over the back foot and bring the gaze around towards that foot. Pause for a moment, another rotation. And then bring the knee again up towards the elbow, stretch it back, bring it across, and gaze back. Keep the foot there, bring the gaze back so it's looking down at the mat. Then bring the foot back there so that the pinky comes towards the earth, maybe comes down onto the earth. Then turn the foot so that the big toe or some part of the big toe comes down. So you're turning the foot lengthwise, pinky to the floor, then big toe side to the floor. That's a gentle touch, just a touch down. This is bringing rotation into the muscles of the hips that slide over each other, going at different angles. And then bring that knee up, and we'll do it on the other side. Right knee comes up towards the elbow, reaches back, take a moment to be long, crown to tiptoes, go across, and gaze rotates back to meet that toe. Pause. One more time. Knee to elbow, stretch it back and over. Then bring the gaze back towards the mat. Bring the pinky side of the foot down. Then turn the foot, bringing rotation to the leg as the big toe side of the foot touches down. Back and forth. Just a slow, long rotation. Stimulating the knee joint and the hip joint. And bring it back. We're coming into a long, low lunge now. This is where you might want blocks or not. I do it both ways. One foot comes up, knee above ankle. Straighten the back leg, tuck the toes. Try to bring the weight into both feet, enjoying the opening of the hip flexor, letting the shoulder blades float down a little bit towards the waist, letting the neck be free and easy, though still engaged. And then you might come forward and back on the toes, the heel kind of floating forward, then floating back. Just encouraging lymph to move up through the body, opening the calf a little bit. Then bringing that back knee down. If you have blocks, you might bring them back as well. Come up on the heel of the front foot. Front knee is bent some. You're bowing over that front leg. Chest is a little bit towards the horizon. You might move the hips back and forth, again, very slightly, an inch or two in each direction. And let's bring the knees together, and the other foot comes forward into a long, low lunge, letting the energy go back through that back leg, coming out the heel, enjoying for a moment the opening in the hip flexor, the back of the leg. And letting the heel push forward. It's really the toes and the plantar fascia, they're pushing the heel forward and back. Bringing some energy into the calf, the movement of the lymph. Then back knee comes down. Bow over that front leg, toes lift, and you're on your heel in the front. Maybe turn the head just ever so slightly so you're not too taut through the neck. And then let the hips go back and forth a few times. Just a little movement. And then bring yourself up. Let's come up into a half forward fold. Hands are on the shins. Press into the shins so you can be long up the backs of the legs. Knees still a little soft, and long from the sacrum up through the crown. Then bend the knees, drape the belly down across the thighs, arms come wide, heart leads upwards. And come up to a standing position. So now we're going to come back to this notion of this long rotation that loosens up the sticky places between the layers of muscles and stimulates the joint capsule. So bring one arm out to the side. Fingers are wide. Reach out through the fingertips. Pull the shoulder blade on that side into the spine, away from the arm, and then turn the sternum in just slightly. Now rotate the wrist as the palm turns up and down. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Palm is down. Feel the humerus, the bone in the top of the arm, come in towards the shoulder joint. Hold this shoulder joint. Hold the elbow firm, and then turn the wrist again, so that that rotation of the palm going up and down is bringing the rotation into the wrist joint. As we get older, our synovial fluid that is produced when joints warm up becomes less dense and watery. So this stimulates that production. Now hold the wrist still, hold the shoulder joint still, and we're going to turn just slightly through the forearm and the upper arm without turning the shoulder joint and the wrist. This is hard and very subtle, not much of a movement, bringing some rotation into the elbow joint. Now, long through the fingertips once again. Pull the fabric of the arm in toward the body. Slide the shoulder blade toward the spine. And let's release the ear down to the opposite side. And turn the neck. So here, the turning of the neck is not only gliding the muscles, it's bringing some of that rotating force into the shoulder joint. And now bringing head up to center, let that arm rest down for a moment. Maybe we'll turn both of the shoulders up towards the ear and down just to loosen up a little bit. And take that arm that you've been working with, bring it up and around. Then just a few more movements here as we bring that same arm out. The head is centered. Pull the humerus into the shoulder and make a fist. Keep the elbow joint firm and circle the wrist so that you feel it in the wrist. Shoulder joint and elbow joint still. You don't need to tense up the shoulder. And then turn that wrist around the opposite direction, bringing that hydration and warming into the wrist joint. Then bringing stillness to the wrist, we're going to turn the whole arm. So now elbow is rotating, all of the muscles in the arm are rotating, bringing all of that movement up into the shoulder joint. So just like we rotated our whole leg and brought that movement up into the hip joint, now we're rotating our whole arm and bringing that rotation up into the shoulder joint. And coming to stillness, stretch out the arms once more and turn palm up and down and up and down. Bring that arm up and down. Take a moment with one hand on chest and one hand on belly. Perhaps feeling the difference between the shoulders, between the arms. Letting that sensation integrate a bit. Hands come down and the other arm reaches out. Once again, bringing the fingers wide, reaching out through the fingertips, bringing the shoulder blade into the spine, turning the sternum in. So we're turning the sternum and the shoulder blade away from that arm, lengthening the arm, and then bringing palm up and down and up and down. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bring the humerus, that top arm bone, into the shoulder, hold it, hold the elbow firm, still, and then turn the wrist, bringing that movement of palm up and down into the wrist joint. No unnecessary tension through the shoulders and the neck here. The movement is right down there in the hand and the wrist. Now we're going to hold the wrist joint still, the shoulder joint still, and have that very slight movement. I can't look at it, I have to do it through my mind's eye. As the elbow joint, the muscles of the forearm move that elbow joint just slightly, very small movement to bring that rotation into the elbow joint. And then become long through the fingertips again, pull the fabric of the arm in toward the body, slide that shoulder blade towards the spine, and we'll release the ear down and turn slightly through the neck as the nose and chin turn from one side to the other. Allowing this movement to let the muscles of the neck glide and to stimulate the shoulder joint. And letting that movement go, bring the arm down for a moment. Bring the shoulders up to the ears, shoulder blades together around. Loosening up through the shoulders. And then 2 revolutions of the arm, reaching up and back and up and back. Once again, that arm comes out. Center the head this time. Pull the humerus into the shoulder joint and make a fist. The elbow joint is firm and circle the wrist. So you should be feeling this in your wrist joint as the soft fist rotates and the elbow and shoulder joint are still and round the opposite direction. Of course, these are best done over time, and so we won't do them every time in yoga, but you can make it part of your daily routine in some way. Then this time we're going to turn the whole arm. So the fist is turning, but the fist is turning the whole arm with it, so that that rotation is coming up into the shoulder joint. These small movements can be done easily while the water boils, or you wait for something in the oven. 3, 2, and 1. And then to end once again, fingers wide, reaching out, sternum turning in, shoulder blade coming in towards the body, and the palm reaching up and down, and up and down. And relax that arm down. Again, bringing one hand to chest and one hand to belly. Coming back to that breathing in the central channel, the Sushumna. Feeling the breathing now coming all the way up from the earth, between the legs, up through the torso, into the throat, and the root of the tongue. One more breath. Hands come down to the side. And let's concentrate on the feet here for a moment, bringing them our love and compassion, our favorite, or one of our favorite pairs of feet on the planet, directly under the hips. Feeling the weight coming down through the hips, down through the calf, into the heel, center to outside of the heel, and then allowing with a little rocking motion that weight to be distributed across the plantar fascia, across to the mounds of the first 3 toes. Just rocking back and forth, feeling the distribution of that weight. So as the weight of our body comes down, the muscles are engaging and bringing force transmission into the heels. So let's just walk around, very small circle or up and down your mat, bringing down the heel, letting that energy come through the plantar fascia, lifting up onto the toes. Just a slow motion walking, sensing that way in which the feet distribute, receive the force down from the body, distribute it through the bottom of the foot, the plantar fascia, springing it into the toes and carrying us forward. The miracle of walking on 2 feet. Then coming back to center, encouraging that springiness through the plantar fascia by jumping up and down a bit, just an easy little jump. Feeling the springiness as that transmission of force comes through the plantar fascia and jumps us up. And then you might try one foot and then the other. Just a very easy, small jogging motion, just to keep that springiness in our feet. Bring the feet flat, anchor down through the plantar fascia, cross the arms, raise one leg, and stomp down. One foot and then the other. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And bring it down. Let's come to the ends of our mats. Inhale, arms up, forward fold. And then coming back into a plank. Again, you might want blocks or not here. Probably not, actually. And coming back into plank. Hands directly under the shoulders, knees might be down or up. Lots of energy around the navel, cinching in. Laser beams coming back through your heels for 3, 2, and 1. Elbows come in, knees come down. Let's come into a Sphinx pose with forearms under the shoulders, tops of feet on the earth. Feeling the shoulder blades resting down towards the waist. Just being here for a moment, breathing up that central channel and allowing the spine to align. Then bringing the hands under the shoulders, tucking the toes, come up into downward dog. Let yourself be quite long, pushing into the hands, Fingers are wide, energy coming up through arms, sides of body, back into the sits bones, maybe paddling the feet. Full body stretch here. Take another vinyasa if you would like, coming into plank and cobra, optional. And then walking, feet forward, bringing hands back to the feet, hands come up into half fold, long, from sacrum up through crown. Drape the body down onto the thighs, arms wide, gaze forward as you come up. Let's take a moment to stand on our feet once again and finish Nikki Giovanni's poem. Wiggle your toes as you listen. She writes, I wiggle my toes in the sands of time, trusting the touch that controls my motion, basking in the warmth of the embrace day's end offers with warm, salty water. It is appropriate I sing the praise of the feet. I am a Black woman. Let's come to a lying position. And we're going to come back into this length and rotation that we've been working with. We'll begin with feet wide on the mat, arms in cactus, bent at the elbows. Find a comfortable place. Arms might be elbows a little farther up or farther down from the shoulders. And let the knees go from left to right. Just an easy windshield wiper, bringing some ease to the hips. Then both knees come in one direction and lay down, settle down. Let the arm on the opposite side so if your knees are going to the right, let your left arm come up. If your knees are going to the left, let your left arm come up. If your knees are going to the left, let your right arm come up. So opposite of the direction of the knees. Stretching up through that arm. Then let there come some lengthening between the top hip and the top knee of that top leg. So the knee of the top leg coming down towards the bottom corner of the mat, the front bottom corner of the mat. Just making a longer length between the fingertips up above and the knee down below. Now straighten that leg, hover the foot, and circle the ankle. So I'm reaching up with fingertips, top leg is straight, and I'm circling the ankle as the leg hovers. And round the opposite direction. And as you might imagine, this is bringing stimulation into the ankle and the knee joint. Now flex the ankle and turn the whole leg like we did earlier, sitting. So from the hip down to the ankle, the heel, the whole leg is turning and the hip joint is receiving this stimulation. Small movement, slow movement. 3, 2, and 1. Now make a fist with your hand up above and turn both the foot and the fist at the same time. So turning the ankle and turning the wrist in the same direction. Bringing that stimulation into wrist and ankle, into knee and elbow, and even into the hip and shoulder, and back around the opposite direction. And let this be the last one. Bring a pause to it, keep hovering, and just make a try of letting the foot go in one direction and the hand, the fist, go in the other direction. And let yourself laugh if it doesn't work, because it's such a strange feeling. And bring it down. Come over onto your back, centering. Stretch up through one side of the body, maybe a wrist pulls the arm up, press the heel down on that side, take a nice long stretch. And then a nice long stretch on the other side, feeling probably the differences between the lengths and the joints on each side. And releasing that, we'll come to the other side. Bring the knees up, feet are wide, coming into windshield wipers, arms are in a cactus position. Shoulder blades relaxed down, back of the neck relaxed. Feeling that nourishing rolling over the sacrum. And letting both knees settle down in the opposite direction than you did before. Bring the arm on the opposite side from the direction in which the knees are pointed. That arm reaches up, so we're long from fingers reaching up to knee, lengthen down through the knee towards the lower corner of the mat, so you're long between knee and hip. Feel that length, that stretch through the lateral line. Then straighten the leg and circle the ankle. Back around the opposite direction, about 8 times, but slowly. Then flex that ankle, turning the whole leg, bringing all of that rotation into the hip joint. Coming back to stillness, let the foot be hovering and hover the arm and hand. Make a soft fist and turn both ankle and wrist in the same direction. Bringing that rotation into wrist and ankle, elbow and knee joints, hips and shoulder joints, and back around the opposite direction. Then perhaps taking the challenge of opposite direction between the hand and foot, letting the foot start in one direction and then starting the hand, wrist in the other direction. Give it a try. I had it going and then I lost it. I'll let you come back to that one. We are about at time. Let's come over onto our side and up into a standing position to end today. This is the Lunar New Year in China. This is the Celtic New Year as well. It's the early spring, if you can believe it. And we're going to gaze at the moon, the new moon, which we cannot see perhaps, but it's up there. Bringing the hands out in front of the chest, fingers wide. Holding an orb of energy that is always surrounding us. Feeling it through the many nerves of our fingers and hands. letting it run up the arms, around the elbows and into the shoulders, bringing some width to collarbone, allowing that electric force to come in to the heart, relaxing down through the feet, inviting earth energy to come up the body into the heart. Then making a frame with the hands, turning through ribs and shoulders, and bringing the frame up around the imaginary moon as you gaze at the moon. Cow gazing at the moon. Inhale round to center. Exhale to the other side. Back and forth slowly, feeling the glide of the muscles. Feeling that healing energy, the glow of the moon. One more time to each side. Coming back to center, and just for a moment, letting that orb of healing light permeate a little deeper into the tissues of hands and arms, of heart and lungs, back between the shoulder blades, up around the head, down through the face, the cheeks, the lips, the tongue, down through torso, bringing the hands down to the belly, this core of our being, allowing the energy to drift down through legs into the feet that hold the weight of the weight the body chooses to bear and the weight the body does not choose to bear. Wiggling our toes in the warm, salty water at the end of the day. Namaste. Good to be with you. See you the next time.